In Tragedy, a true crime podcast, we discuss crimes that may be violent in nature. At times, we may cover homicides, missing people, and other topics that may be unsettling. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to episode 11 of Tragedy, a true crime podcast. I'm Elisa.
And I'm Michael.
And in this episode, we'll be focusing on the weeks leading up to Ian's disappearance, as well as the day of his disappearance, by sharing what we learned from his boss, Joe, and his best friend, Dan.
To kick us off, let's talk for a second of what Ian actually does at Spartan.
So in talking to Joe, we learned that Ian had a pretty extensive work history with Spartan Exteriors. He had worked with them off and on for about 10 years and would typically show up to the job site at 8 o'clock every morning to work.
Well, we work on job sites in town, so he would generally show up and work with about 5 or 6 guys. We pull siding off of houses and put new siding on, install windows and doors. And since we specialize, it's the same thing we do every single day. I've worked off and on with Ian for more than a decade. He had a pretty long stint with us, about 5 years. I think that was about 2016 to about 2020, maybe 2021, somewhere around that time. And then he had some life problems, left the company, and he came back to work with us for a short time in 2022. That only lasted about 3 months. And then he came back to work with us about 6 months before he disappeared.
Do we have a good understanding of what Ian's frame of mind was leading up to the day of his disappearance?
Yes, based on speaking with Joe and Dan specific to Ian's work with Spartan Exteriors, we know that things were going really well. He'd come back to Spartan Exteriors about 6 months before his disappearance. And we know from talking to Dan and Joe and several other people that he had just received a work truck and that there was a lot of talk about Ian moving into being a lead of a job site. So things seem to be going really well.
I recently bought the truck. This was honestly the best version of Ian I have seen. I've known Ian for 30 years, and this was the best version of Ian I had seen in a long time. He had put on weight, and, I was planning on him leading jobs for me, but he didn't have a vehicle that was capable, so I bought that truck.
Ian was at work all the time doing good, and Joe wanted to upgrade him, and we wanted to have Ian back. Ian left for a while and wasn't showing up to work, and Joe had to let him go. And Ian came back and was doing really great, and we were putting him in charge of a crew, which is great because Ian knows everything there is to know about what we need him to do at Spartan.
All right, now that we've heard from Dan as well as from Joe regarding Ian's work life, as well as what typically he was responsible for and what went on at Spartan, what do we know about the day he disappeared?
The day he disappeared, we know that Joe received a phone call from Ian stating that there was something wrong with the truck. And of course, this was the truck that he had just received several days before. We also know that Ian sent a text to Nick, who was at the job site, saying that he was running a little bit late. We learned from Dan that he heard at a team meeting or potentially from Nick about Ian and how Ian wasn't at work.
I know he called me that morning, and I know he texted the Nick, who was on the job site. Nick was the job site lead. Yeah, he said something about the truck was overheating, and I instructed him to take the truck to a shop, and we would get it taken care of, and then an employee could come pick him up. So I wasn't expecting him to be late on Monday, and he did call me early that morning, said the truck was overheating. And we were going to get it at his shop. But then we just never saw him. I honestly don't think he was being truthful about the truck overheating. I think he was having some problems and issues. He would give you excuses that were not exactly true when it came to being late.
I think I heard from him on Sunday saying he wanted to come over and show me something, and I found out it was the truck and couldn't get a hold of him. So that was, past that, I can't really remember who told me, that we couldn't find him or what. We so many people at Spartan, so
at this point, we all know that he's really late to work.
Yeah.
Is there any indication about why that is, or anything about his route to work that day that is of interest?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Joe goes into a number of things about this route and what he understands about where the truck was spotted. And there was a deviation into Tom Brown Park that was really not necessary or even expected on the way to the work site. Let's listen to what Joe has to say for more details on that.
Going through Tom Brown Park, no, that's the turn that doesn't make any sense. But he could have definitely gone straight up Capitol Circle until he basically hit Centerville and then turned left on Centerville, and he would have been right there at Woodgate. Yeah, when he made that right turn, he was not coming to the job site. He has decided to go somewhere else at that point. But it seemed like he was on the way. He had ladders in the truck. I haven't seen the picture, but I have been told that our ladders were in that truck when he turned right.
Appalachia Park, Capitol Circle, intersects with Appalachia Parkway, so they're not parallel. So Appalachia Parkway south of Tom Brown Park and Connor Boulevard and all that, if the ping, I hear the ping was somewhere out in Appalachia Parkway area. So he would have been heading south and he would have been heading east, southeast at that time, so. Yeah, it's definitely kind of out of the way, I guess. It's it's direction you don't want to go. So, if you're heading to Killarn.
As we wrap up these conversations we've had with Joe and with Dan, they start to open up a little bit about their theories or what they think might have happened. It doesn't paint a great picture as far as, whether or not he's still alive. But we also learn a little bit about his on-again, off-again relationship with work.
Yes, we did hear from Joe. We know that he had a pretty extensive work relationship with Spartan, but we learned more about why it was that way and some of the challenges that Ian faced during his life.
Well, it tells me I don't think he's alive. I know that much. He disappeared on his son's birthday. He's never missed his son's birthday. When I talked to his brother Daniel, because I went whenever he disappeared and no one'd seen him, I went to his house. Well, it was his house on record as far as payroll. And it turned out it was his mom's house, Teresa, and his brother Daniel was there. I went to school with Daniel, so I've known him for 30 something years. And he basically said that Ian was in a state that he had never seen him in before. It was like he didn't feel worthy of having this brand new truck. And was seemed to be very depressed. And just basically he had, just never seen him that way. I do know that Ian had gotten into a very large fight with his girlfriend and dropped her off at work. I think they had been up all night. And that's when he went back to the girlfriend's house where the dad lives and was sleeping in the driveway in the truck. Yeah, well, Ian has definitely had substance abuse problems over the years, and that's been the reason that I've let him go several times. And but again, this is the best Ian that I'd ever seen. He did not seem, I mean, he had put on weight. He absolutely did not seem like he was on any substance at all. And like he was completely off drugs and was really ready to straighten his life out. He was very dedicated. He showed up every day. It was something I hadn't seen out of Ian in more than 20 years.
The common thing I've said to Jimmy, my crew leader, at Spartan, Jimmy has framed lots of houses with me and Ian, and the thing I always say is pretty much that Ian was a strong dude. So whatever happened to him, it had to. It's something that where he was either, inebriated or there was multiple people or something. I'm not sure. So, but it's something along the lines, I would imagine.
Well, we sure covered some pretty hard topics today, but we just really want to refocus and make sure that our number one thing is, where's Ian? How can we support the family?
Yeah, and that's been the focus this entire time. We don't, we're not really that concerned about the past. All we're trying to do is paint a picture of Ian prior to that day, during that day, and possibly what happened from that day. And anything we can do to do that can provide a clue or any indication of what may have happened to him and where he is today is going to help us and help his family. So we're going to wrap up this episode now, and we couldn't think of a better way to do it than just hear from his friend Dan.
I mean, there's a lot I can say. He give you the shirt off his back. Taught me a lot. He taught me how to tackle things and attack things on a house and how to set up for it, and very strategic and engineered mind. He should have been an engineer, and very friendly and full of energy. So that's it. That's Ian.
As far as we can determine, Ian Rogers was last verifiably seen around 7:30 on the morning of August 26, 2024. At that time, he was picking up tools for work from his mother's home in Crawfordville, Florida. Somewhere close to 8 a.m., Ian spoke with his boss to report that the work truck he had just been given was overheating. It seems at least 2 text messages were sent from Ian's phone sometime after 8 a.m. and before 2 p.m. Ian never made it to the job site that day. At the time of his disappearance, Ian was wearing a black hat, sunglasses, a blue long-sleeve dry-fit shirt, a white undershirt, tan cargo shorts, and brown work boots. Ian has a half tattoo on his right forearm, which consists of 2 gorillas and a salt shaker, a tribal tattoo on his left calf, and a scroll tattoo with the word Mom on his right calf. If you have any information, please call the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office at 850-745-7100, or you can email us at tragedy@truecrimepodcast@gmail.com.